Today's fan art is made by my good friend SCHIZOBLIZT. Be sure to go check out the artist's work by clicking the links provided in the below. And if you have any fan art for me, don't forget to send it to me through DeviantArt, Twitter, or my email as displayed on the screen. Hey there, Kid Miami. My name is EHX-KOR. School is out, and I'm finally back with a new video. I found this one on my feed while working on some Season 2 EHX-KOR meme comics, and I thought it would be interesting to respond to. I may not have mentioned this before, but before I started making these videos, I was actually closer to an SJW than I'd like to admit. I never did quite reach the barrier, but I was pretty damn borderline to the mentality of social justice warriors, having been indoctrinated into the far liberal mindset throughout high school. With that being said, I thought it would be interesting to answer these questions using the logic that I, or my friends at the time, might have back when I was around 15 or 16 years old.
Why do you claim to speak for LGBT people, women, and ethnic minorities, but when LGBT people, women, and ethnic minorities disagree with you, you harass them?
Alright, so right off the bat, we've got a pretty tough one to answer. I think that the main reason social justice warriors essentially bully their opposing brothers and sisters into silence is because they feel it'll increase the validity of their arguments. Having all of X group think that Y is good or Z is bad is a lot more powerful than only a portion of X group feeling this way about those certain subjects. Because of that, they need to make sure that those who do not think like them do not speak and or are not heard. There's also a point that I suppose, in a way, they feel like those who are not offended by certain subjects are blind to the reasons why they should be, and that they feel that they need to feelings educate them on why certain things are offensive to their specific group. A lot of the time, they'll label it as internalized blank in order to make these people feel as though it's their fault that they aren't offended by what they supposedly should be, and that they need to do more cultural research.
Do you realize that your war on language through political correctness has made you bedfellows with true rape culture? In other words, Islam, the world's most misogynistic ideology.
I'm actually not entirely sure if they do realize this and are simply ignoring the blatant and very real misogyny that Islam and a good portion of its followers hold, or if they really are just blind to it all. Either way, I say it's important that people realize that just like other religions, not every Islam follower is like that. However, this is no excuse to ignore the radical Islamists that do prove to be a real threat. We don't ignore the Westboro Baptist Church or the Church of Wells just because most practicing Christians are relatively peaceful. So why should we do the same with Islam and their radicals?
Do you want women to be equal, or do you want women to be a protected class? You can't have both.
You are exactly right. They absolutely cannot have both. And because of this reality, a lot of social justice warriors will outright ignore the fact that women are a protected class. Throughout high school, I never knew about just how many protections women have outside of the Equal Pay Act, which, by the way, schools still teach about the pay gap to their younger students, or at least they did when I was a student in 2007, give or take. Women want more and more rights because they truly do want to surpass equality and become superior. Either that, or they really are too stupid to realize just how many rights they do have and how many advantages that they have over men. Women want equal outcome, not equal opportunity.
If you expect society to treat women as equal with men, why don't women have to take responsibility for their own safety?
Your question essentially answers itself. Because women would have to step up to the plate and take responsibility for their own actions. Since they don't want to do that, they'll find any way that they can to shift the blame onto something or someone else.
What are you afraid will happen when you leave your safe space?
The triggering.
How can you possibly justify the idea that it's somehow racist to disagree with Black Lives Matter, and yet it's not racist when a black person tweets something like, "Kill all white people"?
Social justice warriors tend to believe that if it is against white people, then it's not racist because white people supposedly uphold the power in society. This is the same reason why they say a woman being blatantly sexist towards a man is in fact not sexist at all. The same flawed logic applies. By saying you are against Black Lives Matter, they take your opposition as saying you do not care about what happens to black people, or possibly that you wish they would cease to exist, which is obviously untrue. Along with this, radical social justice warriors, many of them being in the of color variety, sincerely believe that the extermination of white people would lead to them having better lives because they would no longer have that white man's foot holding them down, even though this hasn't been the case for decades now.
Here's a question. Are you aware that the present is not the past? I'm not kidding. Are you familiar with the concept of linear time? Because you seem incredibly comfortable traveling back through time to talk about how bad things were for women, or black people, or whoever. And then by using some form of SJW magic, you then claim or imply that those problems in the past exist today. Are you aware that this trick that you're doing is not working? Why do you think that would work?
They love to bring up the past because they believe, just like silencing their opposing brethren, it adds validity to any argument that they make relating to the subject in which they are talking about, even though they'll ignore any past issue you bring up in regards to any given subject where white people and or men were the victims, because to them, whites and males cannot be victims of any wrongdoings, especially if they're white and male, and they do realize that it's not working. That's why they'll resort to calling you names such as ignorant, bigot, racist, sexist, misogynist, and so forth. Applying these powerful words to your character is their way of shutting you up, because who wants to be called any of these things in today's society where it could potentially affect you wherever you go?
Do you really think you can spend your entire life in a state of perpetual emotional immaturity? Do you actually imagine that you will be able to stretch out your adolescence for your entire existence?
I've actually never really thought about this until Sargon's question. I suppose that they feel their emotional immaturity is in fact maturity, as they constantly tell their opposition to grow up whenever they disagree with them, even when they make some very valid points.
There are 13% more women in college right now than men. So if the whole goal of feminism is equality, shouldn't we have some men-only scholarships in order to equal everything out?
Didn't you hear? Having male-only things is sexist and patriarchal, as it doesn't include women, even though it's totally fine for women to have female-only things. No, see, social justice warriors don't want this to happen because they feel that men already have an advantage, and they feel that having these extras for women is going to help them advance. While that is true, it will assist women to men's detriment, but they feel like that is equality because women are so disadvantaged.
If feminism and egalitarianism are both for equal rights, then why does one start with a gendered prefix while the other one is entirely gender neutral?
Feminists will argue that men who call themselves egalitarian rather than feminists are sexist or misogynistic because they dislike the gendered prefix, even though it does logically make a lot more sense. However, they'll refuse to admit that because, again, they wish to push women higher, potentially far past equality and into superiority.
What do you hope to gain by bringing back racial segregation?
I think that by bringing back segregation, they believe that they're protecting their other races and cultures from the evil whites and supposed culturally appropriative tendencies.
When my granduncle was dropping bombs on London, did your grandparents get out of their bunkers in the morning to protest with signs that read, "Not all Nazis"?
Very unlikely, but this is current year, and blacks get a pass from all punishment, don't you know?
Why do you think every cis white male is born racist? Racism is a learned behavior.
They state that all biologically white men, hell, just white people in general, are inherently racist because it helps support the narrative that all whites are racist and that only white people can be racist. This can also be applied to
all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic,
and so on.
How can you possibly say that the phrase "all lives matter" is somehow racist? It sounds like something the Dalai Lama would say.
Using social justice warrior logic, one could construe that all lives matter is discrediting the black lives that are supposedly killed unjustly by on-duty police officers, even though upon further investigation, many of the shootings are in fact justified.
Would you rather be right or popular. It seems like your primary objective is to score social points and get public validation. You speak publicly in the same way that people write their dating profiles. Stop trying to demonstrate how awesome you are and get real.
Social points are everything in today's day and age, especially in regards to social media. When we get into the realm of politics, having the wrong opinion can cost you so much as your education or your career if the wrong person gets a hold of your personal information. Something that many social justice warriors are not afraid of doing, despite the laws against it. So to play it safe, they stick with the mob mentality in order to protect their own personal lives.
So if a drunk man sleeps with a drunk woman, the woman is incapable of giving consent, but the man is?
This goes back to taking responsibility. Women don't want to take responsibility for their actions, especially when they mess up and make bad choices. So they'll blame whoever they can to make sure that that person takes the fall instead of them. This is how it was for generations before feminism. If a woman messed up, her father or her husband or whoever her caretaker was there to clean up the mess. This is something from the past that she wants to keep. Men were always expected to take responsibility for their own problems, so that's not new to them. They're used to it. Women are not, and they don't like it.
Is it really easier to spend your life attempting to pacify the world and subdue all around you, instead of accepting that you are the person who has to change?
Same as before, it's all about taking responsibility.
When I'm singing along with rap music, is it okay if I say the word nigga?
In an SJW's mind, no. In everyone else's mind, sure. It's all about context after all, but radical leftists don't care about context.
How do you reconcile your opinion that gender doesn't matter or even exist with your need to invent new genders each day?
The reason they keep coming up with genders is to prove that gender doesn't matter or exist, while having a fancy new label to plaster onto themselves. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but that's what they're running with, I think.
In your version of equality, will white men ever have a voice in society, or will white men always be too privileged to participate in discussion?
It's very unlikely that white men will until they experience the so-called oppression that anyone who isn't a white male experiences for a long-lasting period of time. Then and only then might a white man's opinion be close enough to equal to that of anyone else's.
What makes you think that the power of censorship that you are so desperately trying to establish now will at no point be used against you?
I don't think that's something they're too worried about, honestly. Because if it ends up being used against them, they can always just simply call out, "Oppression, I'm being oppressed, my rights are being taken from me," and the protected classes will immediately get whatever they want.
Why is it that if a woman dresses sexy or even topless in public, you support it, but if a female video game character is dressed sexy, then you want her clothed more modestly?
When a woman dresses sexy or topless, she'll claim it's for herself and not for male attention, even though it almost certainly is, and that it's her body, her choice. When a female in a video game is dressed scantily clad, it is 100% because that is what male gamers, the target audience for most games of this nature, want. Because catering to male desires without female input is sexist, apparently. And then there are the women who feel left out when their specific body type isn't included, because who would have thought that most men don't find morbid obesity to be very attractive in women?
What is your favorite song to sing really loud when you're confronted with a different point of view? Row, row, row your boat gently down the street!
It keeps the evil, wrongfully opinionated thoughts away.
Why are you afraid of dissenting opinions? Your continued attempts to silence all opposition, either by smearing them publicly or labeling their content as hate speech and having it removed, only serves to insulate your bubble even more and maintain your echo chamber. It also prevents you from taking on new information and hearing different points of view that are sometimes superior to yours, which tends to happen whenever I talk.
The key word is superior. They don't like the idea that someone, especially a man, could ever have a thought that is superior to their own. They resort to childish tactics of, I'm right, you're wrong because I said so. That's just how it is, in order to fluff up their already overinflated ego.
What is reverse racism? Like, what the actual fuck is it? It's just racism, right? I mean, am I going crazy here? Am I taking crazy pills?
They call racism against whites reverse racism, specifically so they can say that it doesn't exist. They give it a label so they can denounce the existence of the action.
Do any of you people actually remember all the pronouns? You know the list, right? The one with 76 fucking genders.
I think that number has risen to like 300 or something now. Honestly, most of these people, if they don't use the he, him, she, sure, or the dreaded and diseased they, them, they'll come up with their own. So far, the most common neo-pronouns I've seen lying around include sie, zur, they, ver, fee, per, and zim. All of which my autocorrect decided to step in and correct for me because guess what? They're not real words.
Why do you feel entitled to control what artists and entertainers are allowed to express? Why do you think your sensibilities should be placed above the sensibilities of actual creators?
When people like this are offended, they believe that their feelings should come first above all else, even if the joke doesn't affect them directly. I had a girl kick me from a chat room because she was offended by a 9/11 meme I posted because her uncle died in the attack. She's 15. She never met him.
Have you ever considered that using the terms racism and sexism as haphazardly as you do to describe everything under the sun that makes you feel uncomfortable devalues the word to the point that it actually hurts the people who actually suffer from real sexism and real racism? Have you ever fucking thought of that?
This isn't something that social justice warriors aren't too concerned about, because in their mind, anything can be racist, anything can be sexist, and anything can be any kind of ist, istic, or ism suffix. And by calling anyone any of these terms, it backs them into a corner that makes it nearly impossible for them to push their way out of without sounding like an irrational asshole.
Those are my questions, TJ. I hope you liked them. Hope I delivered on your fucking video.
Have you guys tried drinking this shit? It's great.
That's offensive.
And as the credits to the original video suggest, I will also include the links to all of these participants in the below, along with the source link to the original video. This was honestly a lot more challenging for me to answer than I thought it would be. I spent a good amount of time thinking about a good handful of some of these questions in order to come up with a decent reply to them. I do hope that you enjoy viewing this though, and I hope that you got a bit of a good look through the SJW lens to see exactly what they're thinking. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and share with your friends. Smash down the subscriber button and to tap the bell notification so you don't miss the next video. And as always, have a good day or night. Time zones are weird. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace the X out.